there's two main like taboo topics in the world that if we talked about them more and shined light on them more often, that the world would just be a healthier, better place. And those two things are mental health, and the other one is sexual health. Why are so many people in relationships that even that I know that seem to have love, or they at least really like each other a lot, but man, it seems like the physical intimacy part of their lives over time really deteriorates. What happens to people, and why does it matter?
That's such a great question, and thank you for having me on, because this is going to be fun. I think
Yes.
we're really going to help people think about it in a different way.
Mm.
The reason why is because we don't talk about sex in long term in any relationships. I'm going to say long term relationships, but most of us are so uncomfortable when the subject of sex comes up. We don't have role models for it. No one talked to us about it. Maybe we grew up in a religious home where it wasn't okay, and it's still not okay. And so we just don't have the comfortability with it. That's the one thing. We're not comfortable about sex. The next thing is that we're afraid if we do bring it up that it's going to make us look bad, like we should already know everything, or we're going to insult our partner. If I give my partner feedback about something, I'm really going to hurt his feelings.
Yeah.
She's going to feel bad about it, so I'm not going to do it at all. And the third thing is sometimes we just have this sense that something's wrong with our relationship. Sex isn't what it once was at the beginning, which, by the way, it never is. That's why we call it the honeymoon phase. There's a reason, that's a really great period of time, but it doesn't last forever. So we think, well, maybe something's wrong with me or my partner. If I bring it up, I don't really know what I want to say about it. I know it could be better, but it's just not, and I'm not sure where to go with the conversation. So I'm just going to remain mute.
When you say communicate, do you mean both? Like we should, it sounds silly, but like is it harder for a woman or a man if like, it's like no communication, like, all right, let's go. Or so leading up to sex communication, or do you mean communicating about actual what feels good to me?
All of it. Such a good question. I think we need to communicate about sex during sex. We need to communicate about sex when we're outside the bedroom. All the time we've talked about it, because most couples, and maybe you could relate to this, and people listening, it's like you might say like, oh, we could have sex tonight. Did we have sex? We haven't had sex in a while. Should we have sex? And then in the moment we might be like, is that good? But that's about what I do. When it comes down to it is how to communicate. And I have great tools like, because here's the thing. What if you want to talk to your partner, but you don't know what to say because of all the things I said? Like, are they going to be mad at me?
Right.
Are they be offended? So I give tools like the compliment sandwich. Okay. So here's how you do the compliment sandwich. I love this one because so let's say you want to give your partner feedback.
Yeah.
And you're like, I can't just, first of all, we've never talked about sex. How am I going to come out and say it? So the compliment sandwich is things like nestled between the bread are two really great, the two pieces of bread are compliments, like things that you just, I love the sex that we're having. It's been so great. And this is how we do it. Because someone's listening to this show right now. They're like, I want to have an internal orgasm. How do I tell my partner that?
Yeah.
This is how you do it. You'd say, think of one thing that you are just loving about your partner and your sex life. So the first part would be, I've just been thinking about how hot our sex has been lately. I love when we make out during sex. That really gets me turned on and going. I'm thinking, we could make out more. That would be great. And I'm realizing that I was listening to Ed Milet's show, and I heard this thing about internal orgasms. I realized when we make out, hopefully we make out more. I'm really hoping we could spend more time on my orgasms, because I know you always have an orgasm, which is, I love seeing you orgasm. And I think if we could spend more time maybe figuring out what makes me feel good, I've heard about these different kinds of orgasms, then the third part is that I know that we would be even better lovers to each other. And can you imagine where our sex life's going to go? So you end it with like, the first thing is a compliment. The second one is the request of, could you go down on me more? Could we get a sex toy? Whatever you think is going to get you to more of those orgasms. And the third one is why the third part of the end of the sandwich is, these are why it would be so great for both of us.
Yeah.
Both of us.
When the longer you're with somebody, that you fall into patterns, and like, this is just sort of what we do, right? And I got to say this to everybody, prior to meeting you, if you go back and look at interviews that I've been on for the last 10 years, people say, what's the key to a good relationship? Look, communication, trust, all those things true. But the happiest couples that I know, they have real physical intimacy still, long after the beginning of the relationship. I have to imagine part of that is that it's not the same every single time, right?
Exactly.
So, like, just one thing I want people to speak to, like, if you're thinking about your own relationship right now, I mean this, like, literally, like, when, where, how, position, time of day, everything begins to be like a pattern and very similar. And then maybe that pattern diminishes over time. It doesn't happen quite as much because it's the same predictable thing every time. Is that a big issue you hear about?
Huge issue. I'm so glad you brought that up. The majority of us have sex in the same way, at the same time, in the same position, in the same room, over and over and over and over again. If I like chicken, but if I had chicken every single night for dinner for the rest of my life, I would not be can we just have pizza? Can we sometimes? So it's the same thing that happens to our sex life. What we crave the most in relationships to keep it interesting and hot is we crave variety. We crave spontaneity.
Yeah.
We want something to be, variety, spontaneity, just something a little bit different. And since we don't really know how to mix it up, it becomes the same. I was listening to one of your podcasts. I was listening to your podcast about freedom. You did one about like freedom and letting go. Yeah. And I was like, oh my God, this is such a great analogy for sex. You were talking about that we all imagine that our life is like 100-room mansion that we lived in, right? And there's one room and we live in that one room, but you could go outside that room and there's so much life to live, but we're in one room. I was like, that is our sex life. We all live in one room. And if you just walk outside the door and you're like, I'm going to try some lube tonight.
Yeah.
Lube could change your life. We're not going to have sex in our bedroom. We're going to have sex in the living room. We're going to get a hotel room tonight. We're going to mix up the environment, the atmosphere. We're going to read a book about sex. We're going to go to Sex Family website and download a quiz. I have something called the Yes No Maybe list, and it has like 80 sex acts.
Yes.
And literally it has things on it that you may never have tried before, like maybe spanking or, but it also has like taking a bath together, kissing, making out, oral sex, and you and your partner could do it. It's like I try to make it fun. I try to gamify it. Is it a yes? Is it a no? Is it a maybe? And you just might find there's 80 things on there. Maybe you found that you both like dirty talk and you never knew that.
Yes.
Maybe it's time to start talking dirty. Then you could flip to the dirty talk chapter and start doing it. But no one, I want people to realize that you can get out of this cycle. Just because you've been with someone for 20 years, it doesn't mean that your sex life is over. In fact, it just means you didn't quite have the tools to keep it going, and that's okay. Like, please be compassionate with yourself and know that, like, most people don't. But if you know there's something you want to try, you can definitely mix it up and get it hot.
Yeah. What does that mean? Like, does that mean like just have some fun with your partner, playing around and trying different things?
It means just like because a lot of the other chapters are breaking down like oral sex, communication, a lot of different very specific positions. But explore and play is just anything that's a little bit kinky. And by the way, kinky is basically defined as anything that's not missionary position.
Okay.
So side note, we all do missionary, but kinky, it means that you want to try maybe some dominant submission play, some tying each other up.
Kinky is
talking
just
dirty.
An expansion from wherever you are. If you're already pretty damn kinky, you may be going way deeper than this.
This could be next level because I want this book to be accessible to everybody wherever you're at. And I think the book does meet people where they're at.
Yeah.
And I think they're always refreshing and learning. I'm never done learning. Hopefully you're never done learning. I don't think you ever get to the point where you know everything about sex. So, because we're always changing too. So this just gives people permission to have some fun with sex. It has stuff on there like the yes, no, maybe list, like some tips about because listen, one of the number one fantasies that people have, whether you're a man or a woman, is I was gonna say is actually threesomes, and it could even just be fantasizing about a threesome. But the other one is like group play. But the other thing is like kinky, like either being spanked or doing the spanking, something dominant, submissive, and we that's the masculine and feminine energy.
Yes.
And I don't just mean gender, but somebody has to lead and someone has to follow sexually. And sometimes like one of the biggest fantasies women have is being dominated, is like being taken, is being forced to have sex, and so in a very playful way. So this allows people and gives people permission to explore whatever your fantasies are.
You know what I think? I think people they want to be wanted.
Yeah, we want to feel desired.
Yeah, they feel desired. And I think if you have anything you want to kick off, it's like, I want you to want me, right? And I think that's reverse. And it's like, that may seem like a very basic thing, but when you were dating originally, man, they knew you wanted them. And somehow just, whether that is over the dinner, or it is the vacation, or it is the conversation, or it is taking the quiz, the overriding thing, I think, is like someone wants to be desired. Somebody wants to be wanted. And so I think here I am acting like I know the answer to this, but I just know human behavior pretty well, right? And I know that it'd be pretty difficult to be intimate with somebody who you believe doesn't want you.
Yeah, it doesn't feel good.
Yeah, and so that's one of if you're going to start from some place today, I would suggest starting there. And I would also tell you, the reason I'm so glad we did this, and I'm so glad you do what you do, is I think there's two main like taboo topics in the world that if we talked about them more and shined light on them more often, that the world would just be a healthier, better place. And those two things are mental health, which is still this taboo thing. Like physical health isn't taboo. You get a knee injury, you go to a doctor and get it fixed. But mental health, which is what I try to do sometimes on the show. And the other one is sexual health.
Yeah.
And when you don't address sexual health in a healthy way, it can become very unhealthy. And the things we've talked about, these addictions, the desensitivity issues, the lack of intimacy, the eroding of marriages and relationships, a lot of this has to do with poor sexual health in people's lives. Right. And so I think the work you do is like awesome. And listen, everybody, don't be so damn buttoned up. Give yourself the gift of listening to some of her stuff and exploring something. Go, whoa, I'd never do that. Well, it's okay to at least let your mind go somewhere for a minute. Maybe it opens up another part of your mind that's more your jam.